If you want better aim, you need a better mouse. That idea is everywhere. So I compared a $20 Amazon gaming mouse to a $160 esports mouse. I tested them in aim trainers and in real games, and the results are a lot less dramatic than people would expect. And look, this isn't an anti-gear video, this is a reality check. A lot of players think that their hardware is the thing that's holding them back, so I wanted to test that directly instead of arguing about specs. Here's what we're comparing. First, the Redragon M612 Predator. It's around $20, it's wired, has a 1000 Hz polling rate, up to 8000 DPI, weighs 135 grams, has RGB, and has a total of 11 buttons. And now my main gaming mouse, the Razer Viper V3 Pro. Its MSRP is $160, although now sometimes you can find it on sale. It's wireless, has up to 8000 Hz polling, up to 35,000 DPI, weighs 54 grams, has no RGB, and has 6 buttons. On paper, this shouldn't even be a fair fight. But specs don't necessarily tell you how well you're going to actually aim. Most people don't use extreme DPI, and polling rate gains are going to taper off super quickly. And even weight alone is not going to guarantee accuracy. So instead of guessing, I'm going to test the performance directly. For controlled testing, I used Kovacs. If you've never heard of Kovacs before, it's what's called an aim trainer, and it's a program that removes everything except for raw aim. No teammates, no positioning, no chaos. Just repeatable scenarios where the only variables are the mouse and your own skill. On Kovacs, I used a really popular basic benchmark playlist. It's the kind that people are going to use as a warm-up or just a general aim check. It includes 13 total exercises, each of which you're going to have to perform twice. That's going to help smooth out randomness and give a bit of a more stable view on performance. The tests focus on 2 core skills. The first is tracking, or your ability to stay locked on a moving target. This playlist includes 5 scenarios specifically geared to train your tracking. And secondly, flicking, or your ability to quickly snap onto a target. The playlist happens to have 8 scenarios that specifically train for flicking. It's a bit of an oversimplification, but these 2 skills are going to encompass most of your aim. When testing both mice, everything stayed the same. The exact same sensitivity, the exact same playlist, the exact same order, the exact same sessions. The only thing that changed is the mouse that I was using. And here are the results. Look, it doesn't take a data scientist to show that these are basically the same. And accuracy, while a little bit more different, is also pretty much within margin of error. And look, if I were to hide the labels, you probably couldn't even tell which mouse was which. So is that it? Are expensive gaming mice a scam? Well, not exactly. First of all, of course, this is a really small sample size. And second, there's a difference between playing in an aim trainer and then actually using a mouse in real gameplay. So I also tested both mice in real matches. I mostly play battle royale style games, so that's what I focused on. So I played some Battlefield and some Call of Duty Warzone, which mostly are going to focus on mid-range tracking, fast flicks, and target switching under pressure. And honestly, the experience was the same. My flicks and tracking felt pretty much identical on both mice, even though I could tell that the cheaper mouse was heavier and a little bit less comfortable to hold. I got decent clips, at least for me, on both setups. There is no moment where switching back to my expensive gaming mouse made me feel like I unlocked a new power, and there is no moment when the cheap gaming mouse was feeling like it was holding me back. To be honest, if I hadn't known which mouse I was using, then the gameplay isn't going to give it away. And like I said before, I understand this is not exactly the most scientific test. It's one player, a small sample size, and just a handful of sessions. But here's the important part. If the expensive mouse were really worth 8 times the amount of the cheap one, it should be meaningfully, objectively, and immediately better. I'm going to be honest, from that standard, I'm kind of disappointed. But don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that expensive mice are pointless and that they're for nobody. First of all, with the cheaper gaming mouse, there were a couple of Amazon reviews that mentioned that its durability was subpar, to say the least. And that's always going to be a gamble you take on more budget tech, is that maybe the quality isn't going to be that great over time. But also keep in mind, it doesn't seem to be the norm. Second is just the actual ergonomics of the mouse. I mean, my Razer mouse, which is a lot more expensive, just feels way more comfortable to hold, and it feels like it's shaped to my hand better. And that is going to be personal preference, but just in comparison to this cheap mouse, it feels more natural. And finally, I think one of the most important parts is that you're going to fatigue a lot less easily over really long hour-long sessions. I didn't have time to film 10 hours of gameplay with both of these mice, but I imagine if you're going to be sitting and playing for that long, you're going to want your mouse to be as light as possible. And finally, I'm definitely not in the absolute top 0.1% of players or whatever it is. But if you're playing a really hardcore FPS, something like CSGO or Valorant that requires extremely precise aim and reaction time, then look, I'm sure you are going to see the difference, but if you actually are approaching the leaderboards on those sort of games, you have to understand how abnormal that you actually are. Once you reach a certain threshold, then every single bit of hardware is going to count, and spending the extra money for that 1% increase in performance is absolutely worth it for you. But you already know that, so you don't need me to tell you. But what I'm going to tell everybody else in this video is that your gaming mouse should never be your first upgrade when it comes to improving your gaming output. Even something as simple like buying a slightly nicer chair that supports your posture better is probably going to be a lot more important for sustaining your health and your long-term gaming performance. Or something like buying a higher refresh rate monitor that's going to give you quicker response times and smoother frame rates. I'd even upgrade the keyboard that I use before I bought an expensive gaming mouse. And it's not because I think that the mouse is not an important accessory, it's just that it seems like budget mice actually do the job for the vast majority of people. So here's the takeaway. If you think an expensive mouse is suddenly going to fix your aim, it just won't. If you want better build quality or better comfort, or you're already at a pretty elite level in games, then that's absolutely a valid reason to spend some extra cash. But in terms of your performance, this test suggests that your aim isn't locked behind some price tag. It's going to be built through thousands of hours of practice, not thousands of dollars of purchases. Look, I understand that's less exciting, but it's just honest.